Hello, welcome to this video of mine about song mode on the Akai MPC1. I believe the plus is the same on all its basic programming. It's just some of the details and that are slightly different on things like licensing because of having a Wi-Fi connectivity and things, which makes it a bit better. So straight into song mode. So what do? You go from the main screen, you go the home screen, or the menu screen as I sometimes call it. In song mode is right hand side, or at least in mine anyway, because you can rearrange this screen if you want to. I don't know why you'd want to, but there you go. And so you just press song mode and you're into songs, and you can have up to 32 songs. So this could be very useful live. I mean, you're not likely to play more than 32 songs, and you can see there's a few I've got ready for the purposes of this video. So if we go to this main, what I've called main, you can see down the left hand side there's a list of the sequences, how many times they repeat. So you can see on step 2, number 6, the main pattern is repeated twice. It tells you the BPM and the number of bars in the sequence. And so you see here step 7, there's actually 4 bars in that sequence. So even though it repeats once, it's actually 4 times as long as some of the others. Excuse me. So, and what actually shows you on this side is up to the first 16, and if you change banks, you can get the second 16, and so on. The bank C is the third 16, and so on. You can actually see your sequences, and what it'll do is it will actually, well, I'll show you. Let's do it. So you can see the green is the one that's playing, and the yellow is the one that's going to play next. Right, I'll stop that because I can't really talk over it. So that's actually quite useful for keeping track, because I have to say I don't think song mode in the MPC1 is perfect. I actually prefer it on my older MPC, my 2500. It's a bit more user friendly. The main problem is the big thing you really have to watch is what it matters is if I press play now, you can see now you've got a grey box, which is the sequence or step I highlighted, and then you've got a white box, and the white box is the one that's playing. And it's very easy, if you're not careful, to edit the wrong place. So if I did editing now, I'd be editing step 4, not step 5. And that isn't too bad when you're on the same screen, but this will go off the bottom of the screen. You can see I'm showing 8 steps, but I've actually got 10 steps in this song demonstration. So it's something you just need to be conscious of, because now I could actually edit, but I can't see where I'm editing because it's off the top of the screen. So there's just something to be very aware of. It took me, occasionally when I've made problems, but of course one of the joys of the MPC, of course, is you undo. If you realise that's what you've done, just press the undo button and you've saved it back to where you were at least. The other thing is if you scroll through, you can track it. But one of the things, the problem with scrolling through, as you can just see there, is that you can highlight a different thing. So, if you touch in the wrong place to scroll it through, you actually change which one you're on. So it can be. That's the only problems I've really run into with it. I mean, in general, I absolutely love the MPC1, but that is one of my little frustrations with it. But then you get frustrated with people you love as well, don't you? So. One of the beautiful things about song mode is is the export button. So if you've done your song within the MPC completely, if you've got any audio coming in, record it as an audio track. So that's all within the MPC. You can actually master your track within the MPC, get it all mixed and set up how you want. And then when you press the export button, it asks you how you want to save it. And you can choose your start bar, your end bar, so if you wanted a snippet of it for a remix or something. whether you wanted which stereo out you wanted, because you might have allocated things different places. I have to say I've never used on the MPC1. You've only got outs 1 and 2, so you can't get too excited about that one. But obviously, this software is the same software for all the MPC products. So you can choose what sort of file format, your bit depth, and your sample rate. And you can see I've just got it set at CD standard, and that's all the songs I've published on Bandcamp and SoundCloud with this have been, and sorry, yeah, there's some somewhere else as well. Sorry, I was distracting myself. Have been done at CD standard. I don't see the point in being any better than that, to be honest. I mean, CD standard is perfectly good. And then when you export it, if I actually press that button, it does take a moment sometimes. Yeah, so here you go. You can give. So this is where you could title your song, and then you choose where to save it. You can see in my case, I've got an internal drive, the MPC1 SD card, which is invaluable. If you buy an MPC1, get an SD card, and then I've also got an external drive with a load of samples and stuff on it. I'm going to cancel this because I don't want to save it, strangely enough. So that export mode. One of the beautiful things of this is convert to sequence. So I've got these 4 sequences, or 5 steps, I should say. And what I often do is I'll get a nice combination of sequences, and this is one of the reasons why songs chop and change quite a bit, because if I like a group of sequences, I'll let that stop. I like a group of sequences. What I'll do is I'll do it as a song like this, and then I do convert to sequence. And if you can see this, it's gone to the next empty sequence, so it's number 11 in this case. So we'll save that. I won't give it a name, because what it'll default to is it'll say from song 1 or whatever it's. Yeah, you'll see in a moment. The thing to show you here is you can see I'm on the white box, and you can see I'm on sequence 2. So when I press the main key, you can see I'm on sequence 2, and I'm on sequence 11. So I'll just scroll through, and you can see it's called From Song 1, Convert Sequence Demo. And so now that's that group of sequences. So the same as that little song I just showed you. And this is one of the things I probably use the most on the MPC. It's really handy, and it's one of the reasons, like I say, my music chops and changes quite a lot, because you can do these little things. It's really handy as well. I'm just going to repeat, isn't it? I'll stop it. It's also really good if you've got a little groove together or something, but you want a melody line or a chord sequence to go on for longer than that drum pattern. But you don't want the same drum pattern repeating. So you can put some different drum patterns together, and then play that chord sequence or melody line over the top. And again, I do that a lot as well. So highly recommended, very handy. So back to song mode. Delete and insert. If I go to main here. So when you go, let's go to an empty song. So you can see there's nothing there at all. You can't put anything in. You can't tap on it. That's what the insert key is for. So what I normally do is I just tap a few in, and then change them to the ones I want them to be. But there is something else you can do, which I'll demonstrate here. If you press the record button, and this is really handy if you've got 16 or less sequences, but if you press the record button, and then you can actually just press the pad. And if you want more than one of them, so you press the pad again, it's now repeating twice, and that's the sequence. And let's go back to that one, and I want 3 of them this time. And you can do this, and you could do it for more than 16 sequences. It's just you've got to remember to change your banks, and you'll have to remember that bank B is sequences 17 to 32 and so on. But I don't use this very often, but it is handy to know it's there, and it's a very quick and easy way of getting in a basic sequence. Because one of the things I like best about it, and you see I've gone off again. This is this thing about going off the bottom of the screen. I was typing stuff in there, it went off the bottom of the screen. You see, I just did number 11 4 times. It's actually quite a lot faster in most cases than doing how I normally do it, which is what I was just showing you about typing it in and then changing it. because you can just click on one and you can just change it to a different sequence. Yeah, really easy. And if you want to change the number of repeats, again, just really easy. So I really like the editing, I have to say, in general, like that bit, except for the proviso I've mentioned before. So let's a bit back to the main one. So that covers insert and then deletes, obviously, just the opposite. You've decided actually you'd rather go straight from sequence 5 to sequence 7 in this case, so I press delete. Now goes from, it's got rid of that other sequence. And just a reminder, you can press undo and it's back again. And so one of the beautiful things about the MPCs is undo, and you've actually got depth undo as well if you don't realise. So I've reminded you about undo, done delete and insert. Clear clears the whole lot, so I won't do it on that one because this might turn into a song yet. I haven't decided yet. Let's clear that one. There we go. So that was the one I just typed in. So be very careful with clear. You get no warning, and it could be you've just lost your whole song arrangement. But again, I'm not. Oh, we'll try it. Yes, undo does work as that as well, so even better. Sorry, I just thought one of the things that you can't do is you can't edit the sequences while you're in here. So let's say I was on pattern 6, or I wanted to edit pattern 6. The best thing to do is click on it, like I've just done there. And so when you go to main screen, I'm on that pattern and I can edit it. But if you press play, oh, hang on. Yeah. And you've done your editing, you now can't go back into song mode. You do have to stop it to go back into song mode. So it did catch me out a couple of times, that way, especially if you've got a silent sequence. That really can throw you if you've got a silent sequence. Right, before we get on to a few hints and tips, I thought I'd better just finish running through this main song screen. So up the top here, this is where you can label your track, or your song, I should say. I've just called it main. You've got tempo there, that's your global tempo. So this isn't the same as the sequence tempo, and it depends on the settings in your sequence. If you go to your sequence, you can see it's on global. So actually, even though when you go into song mode it says 115, we're actually really going at 120. And that will actually be correct. That display will be correct if you do have the tempo changing per sequence, if you turn the global sequence off. Then obviously, oops, sorry, that's because I touched the query knobs. The top right here, that's your bars, your steps through the bars, and your ticks, as they like to call it. I've never heard them called ticks before I got MPC1, but there you go. I'm sure it's a normal term. And this tells you where they are in the song. And again, this can be quite helpful if you're wanting to, say on bar 30, you want to add an expected melody, or you've got a drum that's too loud or something like that. You can go in and tweak it, especially if you've converted it to a sequence later. So that's, I think we've covered all the bits on that display now. So now some hints and tips. And one of my biggest ones I'd say to you is the MPC will cope with it to a large degree. You can chop and change, but I highly recommend that you don't. Is that you get into the habit of, I mean, I actually normally write it down, that track 1 is the drums. In this case, you see track 1 here is Urban Kit Hood Drama. Track 2 is a pluck sound. Track 3 is a swell sound. Track 4 is a piano sound. And then that's it. That's the 4 I've used for this purposes of this video. I write that down and I make sure they're all the same. And what I even do is, if I go to it, if I find it, there we go. I've got one called setup. And so what I normally do when I'm starting a new sequence, unless I'm modifying an existing sequence, if I'm starting from scratch again, I've got a new drum pattern in mind, or I've got a different bass line I want to try or whatever. I actually just use setup, and so these sequences are all. This sequence is all saved with the right things on the right track, so that it automatically sorts it all out. Like I say, it might work in song mode. There are times it will go through and it will chop and change, but other times it won't, and suddenly you'll find that your piano sound's playing the bass or something like that, and that's because you more than likely you've used the wrong track. As it defaults on using the first sequence, as whatever the first sequence is set at, that's what it does each track at in the song, but it will let it be changed. once, I think it is. It's slightly complicated, but the best thing to do is just get into the habit of using the same track for the same thing. I mean, some people even always put their drums on track 1 and always put their bass on track 2. And things like that. I don't, but it depends on track 1's always the thing that started off the song idea, and then track 2's normally the drums or the bass, whichever I do second. So labeling, because it's so easy as well. I mean, just in case you don't know, you can actually label the tracks very easily. One of the things I've got much more into the habit of since getting an MPC1, because it's so easy, is just labeling things. I never used to. I used to just make notes and say, sequence 6 was my main rhythm and things like that. So you can see I've called this one, because this is 4/4. I haven't bothered labeling the tracks on these particular ones because it's fairly obvious from what it says the program or what's been selected for that. So I know what I put in there. So let's say I want the chord pattern. If I go insert, because I want it in there, and then the chord stab, that's the one I want. Yeah, so because I've labelled it, I don't have to play it to make sure I'm okay. I know that's the one I want. So that very, very handy for song mode. I virtually always change. The default is it's called sequence 1 or sequence 2. And okay, yes, the first number is the sequence number. But if you've got a description, a short description, and it means something to you, it can be very handy when it comes to when you're into the depths of rearranging a piece from completed sequences. It's just quite a handy thing to do. Right, the only other thing I was going to show you before we go is time signatures. One of the things I do is if I just go to the setup, so you can see this sequence. It's actually, you can see it's actually only 2 steps, so it's a 2/4 time. And so what that lets me do, is if I want a short pause, that's what I've used it for. So that's let me do a short pause, a 2-step pause, and if I wanted that pause to be longer, I can double it by making it 2. So that's one of the handy things on song mode, is that you can make these. If you want some pauses in your music, it's very easy to put them in. And if you did 1/4, obviously, so I've got 1/4 here. So if I do it, I'll demonstrate that. So let me just change it to 1. So what that was I've got 1 bass drum on a 1/4 bar. So and if I wanted more of them, I can do 2. Okay, and if I wanted 3, let's say I wanted 5 of them for some reason. Yeah, so it's very handy to use for doing arrangements, to have 1/4 and 2/5 bars available. If you can't remember how to do them, it isn't one of the most straightforward things. 99% of our music is 4/4 time in the Western world, but it's quite easy to do. I'd suggest doing it from a blank sequence. So insert bar, and you can see here we want there's 4/4. So if you do 1/4 and you want it before bar 1, do it, and then reduce that down to 1 bar. This will now be a 1/4 bar. Okay, so it's as simple as that. And like I say, I mostly use this for managing gaps in where I want pauses in the music. Okay, so I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else I want to show you. If there's any questions or queries or anything you'd like to ask about the MPC1, I'll certainly try and answer, and if I can't answer it, I'll find out, because I do learn things myself doing these videos. I mean, I actually had forgotten about the pad entering of sequences into the song mode, and it's actually, there's times that would have been actually quite useful when I'd forgotten about it. So quite handy for me as well. So thanks very much for listening, and